Welcome back to another new vlog, everybody. Thank you for joining me once again. Where am I? Where am I? I'm in a woodland again, obviously. Once again I've kind of walked off the path a little bit because that tends to be my way of doing things. I think that's my style. I don't like to be too close to other people walking around while I'm trying to take photos, so I tend to sneak away into the woodland and get away from people. But quite often I'm glad I do. In this situation I've got this little cluster of trees just behind me, and they look quite nice with the all the red gold leaves on the ground. There's just something about these two trees here. You've got this one tree leaning one way and this other tree leaning towards it, behind it. And if you just stand in the right position, they look as though they're joined together at one point. But also, as I swing around a little bit, you can also see that these trees here are quite interesting. This is the path that I've walked along, and these trees just off the path are quite interesting just here. I've got the sun behind me, so it's casting its sunlight onto this area here, and it's just making quite an interesting composition, because I've got these trees here which are kind of the subject really, and all the other trees around it, and then bright sunlight coming through here, which makes very interesting high dynamic range. So I'm bracketing the images here because I want to try and capture all of the light that's available in this little bit of woodland. There's not very much of it, but what there is beautiful, and it's really casting some great light on the colours that are on the ground as well. So I've taken a shot here, and I'm going to go and see if I can find something else now. Probably wandering off the path a little bit more. You'll probably notice that most of my vlogs don't really have any set route to them, any set pattern, and that usually is the case, to be honest with you. I tend to have a starting point and a finishing point, and anywhere in between that is where I try to explore. So sometimes I'll take one path, and then another time I'll take another path, and then another time I'll get right off the path completely and end up finding my way towards my finishing point. But the best thing about doing that is that you often come across, or I often come across, compositions that I haven't noticed before, and this is a perfect example. Check out that silver birch tree behind me. Just walking up this path, and there's a bit of a cutting just here. I knew it was here, but I hadn't realised just how strong this composition was going to be. So I've had to stop and get a photo. I've taken a portrait orientation photo of that particular tree, and I've had to use the 70-300mm lens and zoom in a little bit on it because I can't really get close enough because of this kind of grassland here, heathland, with all the ferns that have died off. I don't really want to step on them too much because I don't know what the ground underfoot is going to be like, and I also don't want to turn my ankle and end up in hospital. So I've stood right at the edge of this path here, and taken a shot of that silver birch, and it just looks quite interesting. Just behind it there's another tree with lots of golden leaves on it, and I've kind of lined that up so that's right behind the silver birch, so I've got silver and gold together, which is quite an interesting composition. I hope you like this image. I'm going to make a bit of a move and see if I can find something else. Whenever I'm in a woodland, if I'm walking along a path, I like to look out for some sort of curve along the path, and this is one of those times. This is a great example. I've just walked along this path here, and as I've walked along I've turned around to see where it's come from, and I've noticed this very slight curve in the path. So I've set myself up to try and take a shot of that curve, which is quite interesting. And looking from the back of the camera when taking the shot, that looks like a bit of an S-curve, which is a lot more interesting than it looks as I'm looking at it now. But it just looked quite interesting to take that shot. I quite like the way the path kind of leads you in towards the image and then curves around the edge of the image and then back in again, which is quite nice. And I like the fact that I've got all these trees on the one side of the image as well. I only headed down this path to do something different. I'm glad I did. It's a path that I've never walked along before, but it's a nice little bit of woodland here, and I should imagine that at various times of the year there are going to be some quite interesting compositions. Look at this behind me, this looks quite interesting already. At this time of year though, it's quite good to just have a wander around to places where you've never been, just to have a look at things and try and see something completely different. I've noticed also that the tree canopy tends to thin out a huge amount during this time of year, and it does mean that you start to see things that you wouldn't normally see. I am of course in a woodland here where the tree canopy is quite high and tends to be evergreen anyway, so although we've lost some of the leaves on some of the trees, the taller trees, the taller pine trees, tend to keep their leaves, and a lot of the bramble that we've got around here also keeps its own leaves. So I'm not really losing much of a tree canopy here, and I've also noticed as I look up through the trees that we're getting quite a bit of cloud cover come over as well now. I don't know whether that's just because we are losing the light and it looks a bit more contrasty as we get further into the afternoon, or if it's actually going to piss down with rain. So I'm going to start making a move and see if I can find one more last shot. I was just walking down this path and these two trees behind me caught my eye. You'll notice they're quite close together, but they've both got completely different coloured leaves on them, and I just wanted to try and capture a shot of that. So I've been stood here for about the past 10 minutes trying to get a shot of these two trees. They work perfectly because the shape of them, the tree with the greener leaves on it is slightly smaller than the tree with the golden leaves on it, the yellow with golden leaves. And what's happened is, with the two standing right next to each other like that, they form kind of a dome shape around the top of the two trees, and they just work perfectly. And if I walk a little bit this way, they're no longer forming that dome shape, they're kind of distorting it here, this tree here, and you lose some of the perfect composition if you move too far away. So what I've done is I've stood here and set up this shot to take these two trees. I've tried to use the 17 to 40mm lens, and 40mm is not close enough, so I thought I'd get the 70 to 300mm lens out and use that, and 70 is too close, so I've had to switch to my 50mm lens, and I've shot it at f1.8 and really focused on those two trees, so I've got a very narrow depth of field, very shallow depth of field, and it's just those two trees that are in focus. But also, as I'm losing the light, that f1.8 aperture comes in quite handy, because it means I can use a much wider aperture and capture more of the light. But also, there's a very slight breeze as well, which is kind of moving the leaves around on those two trees, and I've realised that I can shoot with a very, very fast shutter speed when I'm using that f1.8 aperture, so it just works perfectly. Now I am losing the light, so I'm going to make that my last shot of the day. If you've enjoyed watching this vlog, then please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.